Hi everyone, delonewolf here. Welcome back to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. And the first Blood Raider shipyard has actually been defeated in classical EVE style, I must say, because it was beaten by a fleet of Tech 1 frigates from Goonswarm. Then the loot was stolen by a member of Test Alliance. It then was blown up and the loot was lost as well. So this is pretty much what we could expect from new types of content, especially in nullsec in EVE Online. Everyone is trying to min-max their way into this content, and for the players that were actually trying to get on top of the Blood Raider shipyard itself, it meant trying to find the easiest, the best way of doing that, and it turns out that a fleet of Tech 1 frigates gets the job done, so that's what they used. But of course the rest of the galaxy that did not have local supremacy, that was not really in control of the field and could not do the shipyard itself, they went with the next best option, trying to steal the loot from under their noses, and they were actually successful as well, followed of course by swift retribution and the destruction of the Titan, Blood Raider Titan blueprint copy. So pretty awesome little story, I think, for the first Blood Raider shipyard. I'm sure that CCP is actually pretty happy with that one. Moving on to the market, what we're probably not so happy about are the plex prices. So that's going to be 135. And well, these five coming in at 2.7 million, we're gonna disregard those. Plex have gone up to 2.8 million basically, and that is substantially more expensive than last week. If I take a quick calculator, 2809, we'll do that. Although it's a little bit higher than that, then we'll do times 500 is 1.4 billion ISK for an old Plex 30 days playing. This is definitely a lot higher than before, and it turns out right now that yeah, the fact that this has become much smaller, much more granular, has meant so much more demand because of the perceived accessibility of Plex now, right? It still only looks like less than 3 million for an item. This is very doable, very affordable, but this is actually, historically speaking, very, very expensive. We can see that right here on the chart. Just look at that price going up. The only good news I would say is that now we are above 2.75 million. We do see the first cresting here of the 5-day moving average. Median daily prices are hesitating a little bit, so doesn't look like we're going to go for 3 million ISK. The interesting part, I would say, is going to be what happens after this. Will we actually see a pullback, or are we just going to start to move around the 2.75 million average range, and will this become the new normal for Plex? If that turns out to be the case, then on the one hand it means that yeah, this has been a really good move from CCP, because demand will be up substantially, and on the other hand, it might mean a little bit of a pullback when the rest of the Aurum, those balances of less than 1000 ISK, will come back into the game. So that could become a pretty important date in the future if this doesn't go back down substantially. Another possibility, of course, is that a lot of this is actually market manipulation, and that we'll see more volatility after this. So a pretty sharp pullback, a sharp push back up, things like that are definitely also possible in my opinion. And so depending on the movements in the upcoming weeks for Plex, I think we might try to decide on different tactics when it comes to our Plex investments. Next up, let's go for the multiple pilot training certificate. That one is of course following suit, up above 1.4 billion ISK, almost 1.5 billion for the sellers. There's like only like 10 available, so this is obviously a tiny market that's completely drying up. Why would you go for the multiple pilot training certificate when you can go for the Plex? It's just probably going to fall out of use. It may even be that I think at some point CCP is going to develop a quick plan to get rid of these multiple pilot training certificates when they're used up or something like that. But yeah, it definitely shows again that they are at a 1-year high, mirroring the Plex prices. Here is the pilot's body resculpt certificate. That one is actually going down a little bit in price, but the volumes are abysmal. Couple of days with 1 and 0. That is not great. I'm currently selling for 314 million and the buyers are at 281 million. This is of course something that is its own little market, although sometimes there was correlation between the body resculpt certificates and plex. In general, this is something that falls a little bit outside of the EVE Online scope because it is of course a resculpt for your character, and I think more people would prefer to put resources into making their ships look good rather than making their character look better. So next up here we've got the skill extractors. This of course has to follow suit as well, considering that it is still bought with plex now from the New Eden store. These are currently selling for 311 million ISK. Buyers are at 303 million ISK, not something to just disregard here. Buyers of skill extractors more than 300 million ISK. They've definitely been forced up by what's happening with the plex prices. And then the skill injectors are also sharply up to a 1-year high here. Currently selling for 731 million ISK. That's definitely a decent price, right? We're also almost starting to feel like maybe 1 billion is not outside the realm of possibilities with a bit more inflation here. 676 million ISK for the buyers, and of course this could change substantially with the announcement that they're going to change the skill injectors to large skill injectors and make those dividable into 5 smaller ones. But that is basically going to be the extra topic for EVE Talk. As I take a quick look at that, it's a small dev blog. I don't think it's worth an extra video. And for the final check here, something that will probably be requested at this point, we'll take a look at plex outside of JITA as well. Well, that is a substantial difference, right? More than 2.8 million. You can see that one sell order was picked up right away. More than 2.8 million for the sellers of plex in JITA station itself. 2.7 million for the sellers in perimeter, and here in Morrissey as well, very close to that. When it comes to the buyers, 2.7 million is the highest buy order in JITA itself. 2.703 for the buyers in where is it? Morrissey, and then in perimeter just a little bit below that. So there is definitely competition happening there. There are volumes as well, 91,000 plex. That is not so bad. Here another 47,000, and you can see that we can scroll down substantially until we find the first sell order in the JITA trade hub. But I think if we go on the chart here, we can see that volumes are still staying decently strong. Maybe we should expect slightly higher volumes because of these higher prices and that volatility that we've seen here. So it is possible that that market is now being taken over by the player markets in Morrissey and in perimeter, for instance. But at the moment, I would personally say that that JITA is still a good barometer, because the buy orders are still very close to one another, and basically there is this tax difference, of course, between an NPC station and a player trade hub, which does make a big chunk of the difference between these sell prices here. So overall, I actually think that it's still okay at the moment to check JITA in order to consider a feeling of what's happening in the plex market itself. But we will have to keep a closer and closer eye, I think, on some of these player-owned trade hubs, because of course the volumes here are picking up substantially. It's of course completely risk-free to move plex there and to move plex back, right? I think even if it would get blown up, you would just find those in your inventory somewhere else all of a sudden, and then you could just move them to your plex vault and then move them back in another player-owned trade hub or back in JITA 4.4. So we'll see how it works. Perimeter and Morrissey trade hubs have also been, I think, more stable lately, and but who knows when a new scorched earth campaign by someone like maybe Test, maybe the Goons, or someone Test. I think it was actually Horde. Yeah, Horde or Goons might actually happen to disrupt that player-owned market. I think that that's still a risk that exists as well, which is going to support, I think, the trading in Jita itself as well a little bit. So that's going to be it for the plex related stuff. Let's move on to some minerals next. Let's take titanium at 1010. Roger that. So titanium going for 4 ISK 59, so not reaching 5 ISK, but definitely trying to stay in that range. The buyers are at 457, so very small margin here. And the bad news are the amounts, the quantities here. 1.1 billion, 1.4 billion still coming in, 2 billion, 1.4 billion here again. All of those in the last 24 hours. Way more supply than demand, so titanium is under pressure a little bit. And the bad news is that this is still happening despite us being with the 5-day moving average below the 20-day moving average. So this is really not a good sign. I think it does mean that titanium is set to keep going down. 4.5 ISK might come into play. And I think considering the volumes that are coming in here, if that happens, it could be very difficult to get back above that. So we'll have to see. It does go up very quickly here, 4.6, then 474, 480, 481. So there may still be a little bit of hope if people stop bringing their titanium at this price range. But if they do go below 4.5 with decent volumes, then we might be in for a serious correction in titanium. Very dangerous situation, in my opinion, for this market. Next up here we've got pyrite, and that is not a good sign, of course. We've got again higher volumes but lower prices, which means more dumping. Pyrite selling for 419, titanium selling for 519, titanium for 459. That is definitely so close to one another that historically speaking, titanium should be lower or pyrite should be higher. And we do have a buyer here at 5 ISK of 1 billion units, which should mean that pyrite will not fall below 5 ISK. That's the one good news. But if we look at this chart, we can clearly see that the pressure is still on, and the higher volumes unfortunately mean lower prices. Thus, there are still big stockpiles or big supply chains that are working their ways to Jita and are still crushing the prices here for these high-sec minerals. Next up we've got Mexalon, also under pressure in this week here, clearly going back down as well, maybe below 75 ISK. Yeah, 73.96 for the sellers, 70.18 for the buyers, 100 million here, 166 million here, buyers 20 million, 14 million. So again, still oversupplied and clearly under pressure as well. Big, I wouldn't say big, but a slight volume spike is noticeable here just before the drop as well. So I think that unfortunately people are still mining up a storm. In general, I would say that the activity in EVE Online itself feels decently high for being this close to the summer, right? I'm still seeing decent activity throughout all spaces, lots of forum posts and things like that. So I really am not getting the feeling that activity is dropping that much. Maybe a lot of people are actually taking that option of, well, if I don't want to pay for my sub for a couple of months, well, I can still get into the game, play as an alpha. So it still feels as busy or more busy than I would expect for this time of year in general in the game. But this also of course means that with the lack of wars, with the lack of great conflicts and a lot of destruction, that there is just a lot of supply, a lot of build-up of stuff happening at the moment, which is, to my surprise, probably happening a lot locally in Nullsec, because you would expect if they are going with a Cold War race that they would actually be trying to one-up each other in production of capitals and super capitals, that this would actually create enormous demand for all of these minerals. But it looks like they can actually get by locally thanks to the Rorcal, and so as a result here the Isogen market as well, again under pressure. 5-day moving average staying below 20-day moving average, still bigger volumes coming in. And what are we seeing here? 50 million, 40 million, 20 million, 180 million almost at 50 ISK. And then the buyers are at 7 million, 100 million, trying to pick something up close to 47 ISK. So Isogen below 50, and in my opinion looks set to stay there. not great. Noxium, alright, so here major volume spike, went down in price, but actually coming back a little bit, so this might mean that Noxium also forms a bottleneck somewhere, and Noxium is still selling for 390 ISK, the buyers are at 373 ISK, so nice little comeback after that major dump, probably 3 to 4 times the normal volumes in a single day, and managing to come back to price ranges above that or right at the start of that dump here is not bad. I think that this does show that Noxium and Mexalon are the two ones that are maybe needed in the Cold War race that I do think is happening behind the scenes a little bit in nullsec when it comes to the production of larger ships, and that Mixelon and Noxium might actually be a bit of a bottleneck for them, but stuff like Tritanium, Pyrite and Isogen is probably so plentiful that they can actually afford to export large stocks of those to Cheetah, causing these sustained very low prices that are still under pressure. After that we have nullsec stuff. Here is Zydrine just holding pretty much steady at around 1000 ISK, which historically speaking is very cheap. 988 ISK for the sellers, 982 for the buyers, and we still see a couple million here coming in full front page in the last 24 hours. So this is set to, I think, remain pretty stably here. I would honestly wait for a crash of the price way down towards 900 ISK if you want to pick up some of that really cheap Zydrine as an investment. But if you're looking to buy in order to produce stuff, this is actually definitely a decent price as well. Next up here we've got Megasite, and that was last week, of course, major Megasite dumping in a couple of days, causing the price to crash down to close to 1000 ISK, but we are recovering a little bit from that. So 1245 ISK for the sellers, 1150 for the buyers, and a full front page here again with several sell orders of 2 to 4 million, so nothing too outrageous right here. So a bit of a recovery for Megasite, normal price range compared to Zydrine as well. We of course did have to give ground from that very good price here of almost 1600 ISK, but this again puts Megasite in a decent place if you're looking to buy this for yourself for production. And this does mean that you can't just endlessly dump this. At some point the market is going to consider 1000 ISK for Megasite a good investment in general, and that people will pour their ISK into that, causing this pullback here in the price back above the 20-day moving average. So looks pretty good, pretty stable in general. Unfortunately for the high-sec miners, it still means go for the Mexalon, go for the Noxium if it's available in your space, and probably try to disregard stuff like Tritanium and Pyrite, because everything you're bringing to the market is only going to keep putting more pressure on these prices. After that we're moving on to some PI at 18 minutes. Right. There we go. Let's take a look at these construction blocks continuing their descent here. Median daily price is actually really low at less than 12,000 ISK, so this is definitely the pullback in full swing. 11,800 ISK for the sellers, 10,800 for the buyers. Probably at or a little bit below average already at this point. So the first one where you can really say that the good times are over in a matter of a couple of weeks. We've gone from well above average at 15,000 ISK to between 11 and 12,000 ISK on average, which is close to it, but maybe with a bit of momentum we are going a little bit low. Keep an eye out for a buy opportunity, but considering the volatility here, I think it will be very short-lived either way. Consumer electronics next also of course has to give ground at some point. Went as high as 17,000 ISK right now, 13,000 ISK. If you look at the entire chart, we're probably back on an average. If we look at the this is the same chart, so I actually think that it's still a little bit above average, selling for 14,200 ISK, buyers are at 12,900 ISK. I would say if this drops in the mid 13,000s and this drops to close to 12,000, consumer electronics are back on their average. So you're still selling a little bit above average, but again you can see that the good times are slowly over here in the PI market. Coolants next, that one had a peak in February, has been going down since then. dropping to 11.5 thousand ISK on average, 12,000 for the sellers, 11,500 for the buyers. So this is coolant right on its average, nothing too special. It's still okay to sell here, but I would not blame you if, certainly if you're a producer, you're starting to build up stocks for a better opportunity. The question of course is, what has exactly triggered this? Will we see a repeat of this? It's very difficult to say. Enriched uranium next was holding pretty well at 17k here, 16.6 actually, but now dropping back off. Let's see what we're selling at, 15,750. Buyers at 15,250, so still above average, right? We're still not doing too badly. I would say maybe 13, 14k bit in between there would be an average for enriched uranium, but again we can see that the pressure is on in the PI market. Mechanical parts next, very similar story here, peak at in the second half of March and been under pressure since then. We're still above average. Mechanical parts is very easy to make, barren planet, very common stuff. That's all you need. So the average could actually be close to 10,500 ISK or something like that. Sellers at 12,200, buyers 11,600, decently small margin. So we are probably trying to settle at a price that's above average. We're still there, but again, we are seeing that PI is taking a bit of a hit at the moment. ISK is flowing somewhere else. Well, we all know what's happening with Plex, I would say. Oxygen next, that one is actually working towards a 1-year low right here. That's quite surprising that it's still under pressure. Lack of demand is right here. 397 for the sellers though is still it's cheap, below 400, but it's not yet I would say at a price where it's a complete no-brainer. But 350 for the buyers here, you could try to compete with for some very cheap oxygen, but of course very common. So you might be holding on for that for a very long time as well, and it's not that easy to get great margins on it. Robotics next, again the story repeats itself. We are going down towards 100,000 ISK here. The peak was at 120,000 ISK, 20% loss. 105,000 for the sellers and buyers, dropping below 100k, 97,000. We are again slowly coming back towards average prices for these PI materials. That's a pretty big jump up here, as we can see right there. So not bad, but the party seems to be ending. Rocket fuel next here, also first signs of pressure, massive volumes, meaning lower prices. Currently, let's see what we could go for 15,000 ISK for a couple months here. Average price maybe 12 to 13,000. Currently selling for 13,000. Buyers are 12,000. This puts us pretty much back on the previous range of rocket fuels. Self-harmonizing power cores next. Okay, this is a little bit more what I'm expecting. The next set of structures are still quite a ways out. It's only going to be for the winter expansion, and some people are of course preparing. Here we get volumes increasing the price. That's probably quite a bit of extra demand, but here good news at the tail end. 5-day moving average and median daily prices going well below the 20-day moving average, so the pressure is back on self-harmonizing power cores. Currently selling for 2.2 million, buyers are at 2.1 million. Bit of a dry up here as well in demand, actually. Only 3 more buy orders and we're below 2 million. That's where, in my opinion, you might want to start investing in those, whether it's for preparation or maybe even as speculation towards the winter expansion. If you could chew through these 3 buy orders, we might have a little bit of a chance. So that's something to keep in mind. Another thing is, of course, it's still early. I think the summer, and considering where the rest of PI materials are going, could mean a really great buy opportunity if this supply keeps up here. So this is definitely one of those that if you want to take the gamble on the winter expansion for the new structures, this is one to keep a close eye on. Superconductors next, also going pretty low here at this point. 11,000 ISK on average, 11,844 for the sellers, 11,155 for the buyers. Again, the lack of demand is coming in here, oversupplied. It's up to you to decide. We are getting really close to that low point of last year in September, so this could be interesting, starting to look interesting as an investment. Test cultures next. Let's take a look at that one. Also dropping off, so this again could turn out to be interesting, but we have to keep in mind the previous lows here, as low as 6,500 ISK, sellers 8,400, buyers 7,500. I would still wait it out a little bit, although I have built up some stocks here on this low trade range here throughout March, April, I think. So because of the potential, right, 15k is definitely still a potential, but there is probably going to be a better buy opportunity. If I have to take a little bit of a gamble, I would look into grabbing some superconductors, considering the chart right here this week. Wetware mainframes, finally, this, well, it's still edging down here. 5-day moving average is playing with the 20-day moving average right here at the tail end again. Volume increase, slightly increasing the price. So this is just more preparation for the winter expansion, in my opinion. 2.3 million for the sellers, 2.2 million for the buyers. Again, what we do see here is that buy orders are slowly drying up. So if we see this trend continuing, and then we see the trend in general PI continuing as well, we might actually see a very nice buy opportunity form somewhere in the near future. I would gamble summertime myself, but who knows when exactly that is going to happen. Keep in mind that last year, for instance, summertime was not bad for most of those PI materials as well. Robotics still did decently well. Something like consumer electronics, look at that, July, August, actually still a pretty high price. So the actual buy opportunity at like 10,000k came only in December here. Quite a nice volatile chart here for consumer electronics, but let's see if we can build up on all of this in the summer and if we can spot a buy opportunity. It's the first like year cycle that we're coming close to for consumer electronics on Eve Talk, but I think it's a very, very promising segment if we look at these charts in general. And as I've said here, test cultures maybe a little early, but superconductors, self-harmonizing power cores, also a little early, but considering the momentum here, yeah, keep a close eye on those. I would say I am definitely going to do so. I think that there is great investment potential in this market. Let's move on to some Tech 1 chips at 27 minutes. Okay, still the same, just yeah, a little bit lazy from me. It's maybe something that if you want me to check out certain Tech 1 chips for a couple of weeks, feel free to post that in the comments. I'll try to do it, no promises on my part, but I may just add a couple of interesting ones if you guys bring those in the comments, because the Tech 1 market unfortunately is very stale. The only interesting thing here so far is that the battleships have jumped back up a little bit. So here the Abaddon we can see trading for 206 million in fact for the sellers, 178 for the buyers is a very wide margin. Basically there is no supply here for Abaddons. Are we seeing a volume increase? Yeah, a little bit here. So quite a few have been bought, and it is my theory that people are expecting Tech 3 cruiser nerfs, and that the battleships might actually come back as a bit of a frontline meta in NOSEC. So that is my expectation, that some people are already speculating on that. One note on that Tech 3 rebalance story there is that CCP is now looking for people to join in, to make a core group to look at what they can do when it comes to the Tech 3 cruiser rebalance. So if you fly those ships a lot, if you have an interest in actually being active and seeing those Tech 3 ships maybe not get nerfed too hard or actually have great ideas for them, feel free to keep a close eye on the forums and the EVE Online website itself, because this is the time to bring your feedback to CCP, to give them ideas on maybe some stuff that they can do, and as a result hopefully we won't nerf the Tech 3 cruisers into the ground. But I personally feel like that's the expectation, that if even if they don't get nerfed into the ground, that they will be brought back below battleship capabilities, I think, especially for the big fleet fights. I could be completely wrong on that as well. This is pure speculation from me, based a little bit on what I've heard from CCP Fuzzy, for instance, stating that they don't like how the Tech 3s take niche roles from other ships And then the first thing that comes to mind for me are the battleships. Next up here we've got the Caracal. Also, well, this is still under pressure basically after the Ascension expansion, and this is where most of the Tech 1 market is. Caracal's 9.7 million for the sellers, 8.8 for the buyers. Very cheap Tech 1 markets at the moment because of course of the huge mineral supplies that are very cheap at the moment as well. Here is the Coveter, very similar chart, under pressure a little bit at the tail end, selling for 25 million, buyers are at 23 million. This does mean that the Alpha clones have very cheap ships for themselves at the moment, and that Tech 1 doctrines might be very cheap to build up, but I guess because of their lack of effectiveness, it's both supply and demand that is extremely low. Here is the Hurricane, which is a battle cruiser, currently selling for 45.5 million. Actually very cheap for such a popular and good looking battle cruiser. Man, that does look really great. I should maybe fly one at some point, find some use for it, because I've never flown, I think, the Hurricane, and it just looks so good that I think it's an experience you have to do at least once. And at the moment they're just extremely cheap. At 45.5 million. Margin not that big, 41.6 million for the buyers. It's of course also a little bit bigger, so with the slight increase in mineral prices, it is possible that Hurricanes sustain their price a little bit better. But if you look at the entire chart, of course, used to cost 6 million, only 45 million now. Here's the Maelstrom. Again, we see that little bit of a jump up here with the battleships on a slight volume increases here as well. So I think that there is a bit more interest, but for Maelstroms looks like supply is actually a bit more alive. 178 million for the sellers, 159 for the first buyer, 55 after that, 147 for the first sustained set of buy orders. Jesus. Voice is giving out a little bit, but yeah, Maelstrom again showing a slight pattern of maybe some people are building up fleets or stocks of those in preparation of what might happen with the Tech 3 rebalance. Here's the Megatron, actually managed to sustain itself decently well before or at Ascension. Average price 170 million. Here now sometimes jumping up to 170 million on average as well. So it's lower, but not by that much. Quite interesting. 160 million for the sellers, 147 million for the buyers. It's a pretty cheap battleship though. Prophecy next here, under pressure towards a 1-year low, so at 44 million people jumped in and said, okay, I'm actually gonna buy some of those really cheap prophecies. 49 million for the sellers now, 44 for the buyers. Again, very cheap for what is, in my opinion, a great PvE ship as well. It has incredible tank, the drone missile combo, which I think is a winner, and I have a couple of prophecies lying around that I sometimes use. I think it can definitely be really good if you want to use this in like wormhole space, C1, C2, no problem with something like a prophecy, and also for missions. I think I like this ship in like Tech 3 missions, make those guys really very smooth and almost trivial to go through. So yeah, Prophecy very cheap at the moment for a battle cruiser. Margin here 5 million, a little bit more than the Hurricane margin, but we're definitely seeing here the cheap mineral prices and the lack of demand in the Tech 1 market in general. Scorpion, the one battleship that is not following suit here, 130 million, 142.5 for the sellers, 126 for the buyers. A lack of demand very clearly shown here in the Scorpion market, meaning that you can pick up Scorpions on the cheap as well. Also a battleship that I don't have, but here it's maybe the understandable difference in Evo line at the moment. Tech 1 ships, sure, they're very cheap, but why buy a Scorpion when I can buy a rattlesnake? Next up here we've got the Vexor, managing to stay at the current price range, but again we can see much lower than before. Vexor selling for 10 million, buyers are at 9.8 million, so trying to stay above 10 million. Fresh supply, not that much in the last 24 hours, probably going to be able to do so, but definitely not a high price for a Vexor either. So Tech 1 ships, if you have some interesting ones that you want me to check out, feel free to post those in the comments. I will try to honor those requests. Next up, Tech 2 markets, 34 minutes. Okay, getting round, nice round timestamps here. Here is the Aries. So what we do like and what we want to see here is that volatility, of course. Starting at 21 million, ending up towards 27 million, managing to peak there twice after that, then pretty smoothly back down to 21 million. Again, another opportunity at 24 and 25 million. Again, going back down here as well. But what we don't like to see is here when we're settling for longer sustained periods of times at prices in between those peaks. So we want to see that volatility, but here at the moment for the Aries market, 22.4 for the sellers, 20.4 for the buyers. You know, you have to risk this as an investment for hopefully an OSEC war, but who's gonna do it at the moment? Not very easy to predict. And so right now we can see a little bit of like decreased volatility in general, which is not good news for what I want to do in the Tech 2 market, which is to make Twitch trades, make some ISK on some nice volatility. So Aries not happening. The claw here, that is a little bit better, but unfortunately the peaks are, well, 25 million is respectable if you can pick them up for 20 million. You're making some ISK on that, and so here again we're dropping back down. Where are the buyers at? 19 million for the buyers, 20.5 million for the sellers. Yeah, if you can buy at 19 million and sell for 25 million a couple of weeks ago, that's not bad. So the claw, okay, we'd like to see it higher, of course, go up to 30 million, but not too bad right here. Lack of demand is clearly here, so if you want to pick up a couple of cheap claws, it is right now, I would say. The crow next, this is what we definitely don't want to see. Not only are we slowly edging up, we are slowly edging up without any real spiky behavior. So the crow, unfortunately, I have to say I would put this at a big no at the moment. This is just too slow in evolution. We want to see these kinds of spikes. So crows are selling for 25.6 million, but there is decent demand up to 23.8 million as well. I would stay away from this one for investment purposes. The Aries, that was quite nice, but also not exactly what I was looking for. So this sustained lower price period down to 37 million was a great buy opportunity, as it turns out, because we did spike up to 55 million and currently still selling for a respectable 50 million. Buyers at 46 million, but we would of course like to see this be a bit more fast moving, a bit more volatile. Next up here we've got the flycatcher. Let's see if we can scale this up a little bit. Currently selling at a pretty high trade range, so currently selling for 66 million, definitely a good price. 61 million for the buyers as well, and we can see on the chart right here that if we ever dip towards 55 million, that's your time to jump in on the flycatcher market as an investment. So right now, great time to sell if you still happen to have some of those lying around. The heretics next, that is good, that is really good. Look at that, January peak up here, up to 60 million, definitely. Then we drop back down to 45 million. In April, another peak up to 60 million. We drop back down, unfortunately 49 million. We'd like to see it lower, but you know, for considering the rest of the Tech 2 market, I'm really happy with this, because just mid-April you could have bought these for 49 million. They're currently selling for 62 million, completely dried up with decent demand right here up to 52 million. So this is what I like to see, and I would not have called this a buy opportunity myself right here, but this here in February probably yes, and now you have your second sell opportunity in the 4 months after that. So this is not bad at all. The heretic showing that Tech 2 for Twitch, well, Twitch trading, it's not that fast paced, but it's definitely pretty good, right? In just a matter of 10 days here, we are going from 50 million to 61 million with no supply, so you're probably going to be able to get rid of those volumes here. 15 to 20, not so bad. The Hound next, yeah, this is again not where we want to see the prices settle. So here this is clearly the decrease in volatility that can be seen. Currently the buyers 19.5 million, we need to get rid of those. Below 19 million it becomes interesting. Close to 18 million is where the Hound becomes an actual investment, and this is of course what we want to see, but are not having at the moment. Malediction, again, those slow steps up to higher prices towards 25 million. Not good news. 24.4 for the sellers, 22.7 for the buyers. That's a big no again. Manticore, okay, showing that volatility, that is not so bad. Selling for 27 million for Stealth Bomber. Buyers are at 24.8 million as well. That is not bad. Not that long ago, you could have probably bought some of these for close to 22-23 million. It is a bit of a step up from the other Stealth Bombers, so remains a bit more of a gamble in my book. But the sharp volatility here in the 5-day moving average is great news for trying some investments. It's a bit of a gamble, but the Manticore market, you can sell at the moment and try to look out for those buy opportunities. The Nemesis next, okay, again the lack of volatility is not that great, but we do like to see this drop below 20 million on median daily prices. 19 million for the buyers, 22 for the sellers. This one could again be interesting if a war breaks out. We get some Stealth Bomber fleets that are getting lost. Nemesis is definitely a part of that, and you can pick him up for 19 million at the moment. So same as the Claw here, nice little pullback down below the previous averages here. This could be interesting to try and pick some up. Purifier next, also dropping down sharply after sell opportunity at 26 million. Currently the buyers are empty. Look at that, 19.6, just 2 of them. So here again for the Purifier, if you have the ability for that, I would say fill those, well, no, maybe not fill those 2 buy orders, but if those get filled up, then you can definitely move in on the Purifier. This could be set to drop really low, maybe towards this price point. So keep a close eye on this one if you're in for some Tech 2 gambling. A Purifier looks primed to allow you to pick up some really cheap ones. Saber next here, not great. Again, we'd like to see this drop towards 45 million. Buyers are at 51 million, sellers 54.5. So again, no, we're too much in the middle for this one. But a couple of buy opportunities, a couple of sell opportunities, and some of these guys do show that there is volatility in the Tech 2 market. And a Nullsec war, a Nullsec summer war, not sure if it is going to happen, but that could actually give us the boost we need. So look maybe for a couple of good investments here, like some cheap Claws and some cheap Nemesis. I think you could make money on that if you have the patience for Nullsec activity, of course. That needs to trigger, in my opinion, and then we could see some really good stuff. Next up, the Tech 3 market, 41.45. Right. There we go. As always, we'll start with the destroyers that are finally showing a sign of at least some volatility. Unfortunately for the Confessor here, it's on its way down and still with substantial volumes, 155, 137, currently being sold at 30 million. But keep in mind that we did have this one sell opportunity that went up towards 40, 45 million. So again, up to you to decide. Do you want to jump in on this opportunity to buy some Confessors at 30 million? Maybe buy 5, 10 of those, and then wait out for that volatility to come back. Maybe it could happen. It's difficult to say, of course, but considering the previous experience, I might actually consider doing that. Here's the Hecate next, also dropping off substantially, going back down. Let's see what it's selling at. 30 million again. Buyers at 30 as well, 156 right here. We can see that in the last couple of days, quite a little bit of dumping has been happening to create those lower prices. So maybe it can be okay to jump in on this. Jackdaw also brought back to 30 million. Buyers are also at 30 million. Volumes increased, prices down. So that is a little bit surprising, but across the board, the Tech 3 destroyer market is back down to 30 million. And on pretty big volumes here. So again, up to you to decide whether or not you consider this to be another small buy opportunity. Most of them, let's see here, Confessor showed a slight sell opportunity. Hecate also right here, look at that, up to 45 million. Here's the Jackdaw, only up to, let's take a look at that if we can. That's probably, come on, 39 million. And then this Vapoldot has never really managed to break out. So this is up to you to decide. I still think I did my trades for like 100 million. So that is maybe 3, 4. I think I went up to 5 for the Confessor and actually made some misc on that. But those are you know, don't go overboard. Don't buy 153 confessors at 30 million. You're gonna be sitting on those for way too long if you're waiting for a sell opportunity. But just a couple, I think that it may make sense. The general vibe here though is all of these have been oversupplied, pushed down to 30 million. If they can sustain that for a bit longer, we might see a lower buy opportunity. So again, don't put your entire investment in that right now, but to me this is starting to look pretty interesting. And then next up we have the cruisers here. The Legion continuing its inevitable downtrend at a 1-year low price point, 121 for the sellers, 107 for the buyers of a Legion. Will we be able to buy some of these Tech 3 cruiser hulls for less than 100 million? The Legion is coming close and it's just not stopping. Next up here we've got the Loki, also again pushed back down below 20-day moving average, selling for 110 million ISK, buyers at 104 million ISK, a little bit closer. Next up here we've got the Proteus, also again 1-year low, still under pressure, 112 million for the sellers, 103.5 million for the buyers, even lower again. And then finally here we've got the Tengu that is just dropping off on even more massive volumes. This is of course a really good PvE ship, 101 million for a Tengu now. That is very, very cheap, but again we don't know what we'll end up with after the Tech 3 cruiser rebalance, so keep that in mind. But this is crazy, 205, 195, 144, 96, everything is being dumped on the market despite being in 1-year low prices for quite a while. This Tengu chart though to me would be maybe my time to at least buy one Tengu, so that you have the option of at least flying the ship when the changes come in, if you find those to be interesting as an investment. It could be great, but it's a major gamble in my opinion. So this is the gamble for you to make right now. Look at that chart, just pretty crazy, and this is still on really, really high volumes, and we know that there is a change coming. Which direction will the nerf bat swing? That is of course the gamble that you're taking here. The Tech 3 market in general, again though, in a massively oversupplied situation, that again is a sign, in my opinion, of high activity in the game in general, but maybe a bit of a lack of or a low rate of conflict happening, especially here in wormhole space apparently at the moment. So that's my reading of the market for this week. For the extra product, we're not going to check something specific. I'm going to talk a little bit about the skill injector change that is happening. So CCP had a little dev block out, just a couple of sentences, not a lot. Oh, and actually I have to write down 47 minutes. All right. So mini skill injectors, or according to the dev block, these guys, these skill injectors that are like 500,000 skill points, and then depending on number of skill points that your character has diminishing returns, will become large skill injectors, and then you'll be able to just buy one of these, split them up in 5 smaller skill injectors that will have 100,000 skill points in the pool, with probably the exact same diminishing returns on higher skill point pool characters. So the very first line of the dev blog is of course considered to be quite a bit weird. Now that the plex market is stable, or has stabilized, well, I wouldn't call this all too stable if you look at what's happening with these puppies at the moment, but in general, I must once again say that this is not against the sandbox rules, but we can expect this to again increase demand for these skill injectors because it makes them more affordable. And I'm here we also don't have this this supply that's gonna come from Aurum stocks, which Plex did have, and it just hasn't helped. So I thought that the extra Aurum that would all of a sudden be converted to Plex would at least stem the tide a little bit and maybe even push the price back down. But no, the fact that Plex now looks so cheap at less than 3 million makes for that increased demand, makes for people willing to pay up that amount of ISK for these new smaller Plex. And so with the skill injectors divided by 5, this will go down to, well, it's still 100 and some million that you're going to have to pay for that. but it again I think will make demand for those increase substantially. And in general about this change, I'm not really against it. I think that the biggest advantage, just like with Plex, is that you'll be able to tailor your character a little bit more easily. If you can, if you just need a bit more for reaching that cruiser, reaching that battleship that you want to fly, you can just buy one of those smaller skill injectors and get there without having a waste of hundreds of thousands of skill points and not really knowing where you're going to allocate them. So in general, this should provide us with like a better service for people that actually use these skill injectors, just like with Plex. Apparently people appreciate that a lot because of the price that they're willing to pay for those. And most of the complaining that I've seen on the comments and the Reddit thread about this is the slippery slope argument, right? Most of the people that are against this, that are seeing this as a problem, are basically seeing pay-to-win features on the horizon for the next store. So on the one hand, I do fully agree that this is not something that is meant to provides EVE Online with new types of gameplay or anything like that. This is not a development decision as such. This is a business decision by CCP. But considering what's happening with Plex, I think it makes total sense, and I don't see this as breaking the sandbox rules in any way. So I cannot be against this change myself. And then when it comes to that slippery slope argument of people saying, well, soon we'll have the golden ammo, we'll have ships in the next store, we'll have things like that. To be honest, I have a little bit more faith in CCP than that. They know that EVE Online is a sandbox. I do think that they respect that and want to defend the integrity of the sandbox just as much as we do. But we have to accept that EVE Online in general, I would say, is a unique game. CCP is going to try to run it as a business because it is a business. They want to make money by running the game. And so they will also try to push the envelope when it comes to what they can do within the sandbox. But I don't think that CCP is ever intentionally going to break the rules or break the sandbox. And they are going to make mistakes. EVE Online is such a unique game that CCP has this task that they have to manage a sandbox without having any reference point, right? I would, at this point, my thoughts about this were going to Blizzard, which I love Blizzard and I really enjoy Blizzard games as well, but those are safe bets. Hearthstone is a card game. They had hundreds of other card games to look at, pick the best elements from, and then just make sure that it runs with the Blizzard polish, add in their daily quest system, which makes any game that they have extremely addictive. It really works as well, but this is a very safe, predictable environment where Blizzard is doing all of this. CCP has to do this at the front line of the game type that almost no one else is running, which is the sandbox. And as a result, yeah, they'll make more mistakes, there will be more trial and error, and we have to be vigilant on that. But personally, I do have faith in CCP when it comes to that they will treat EVE Online with the respect that it deserves, and that they won't break the sandbox or the rules when it comes to pay to win, especially not with malice intent, with the intent of, well, now we're gonna cash out or anything like that. I just don't see that. If we look at FanFest, if we look at everything that comes out from CCP and the devs, I just don't see that personally. So I don't agree with the slippery slope argument because I don't believe that CCP will ever take that risk or take that step. That doesn't mean that you're not free to criticize. Of course, you are absolutely free to criticize any decision that they make, but when it comes to the skill injectors and the plex changes here, making that smaller, considering what's happening with the prices, I think that, sure, it's a business decision, but it's one that makes sense, and it's one that doesn't break these EVE Online sandbox rules, I would say. And there you go, guys. That's going to be it for this EVE talk. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I'll see you all next time.